Hi there. It appears that there is still some confusion around the restriction rules that we've set up for this lockdown period. So I'm just going to go through some of the settings and the reasons why we've set the system up the way we have, and hopefully it will assist you in setting up your golf club to enable your players and members equal and fair opportunity to the tee sheet. So I'm going to start off by going to the admin tees and bookings and settings and member tab. Here you'll see the maximum future bookings in next 7 days. We're recommending that you use 7 days for your booking rules, and depending how busy your golf club is will determine how many number of bookings that players are able to make in the next 7 days. 2 is probably a very good starting point, or if you're an extremely busy golf course then set it to 1. But 2 is a good starting point for an average golf club that has a reasonable number of weekend players and midweek players. Because what 2 bookings in the future 7 days allows us to do, it allows us to make 2 bookings in the upcoming 7 days. Now please note that today is Wednesday 27th of May, so today, current day, regardless of whatever day it is today, is always day 0 and does not count towards the number of future bookings. So future bookings in this case will start from Thursday 28th of May and they will run to Wednesday 3rd of June. So I am able to make 2 future bookings in them 7 days. If I am a person that works Monday to Friday, then I may want to book Saturday and Sunday, and then that would mean I would not be able to book any midweek rounds, but I would be able to book on the tee sheet today. And the reason we've done that is because if you've got some future bookings on the system and you have a look at the tee sheet and you can see that there are empty spaces, then it only seems sensible to allow golfers to use up them empty spaces rather than allow them to go to waste. So the current day is always day 0 and does not count towards the number of future bookings. If you're the sort of person who doesn't work and you want to play midweek golf, for example, then if you're booking up your Thursday and Friday slots, then you will not be able to book the Saturday and Sunday slots because you have 2 bookings on the system on Thursday and Friday, thus leaving the weekend golfers the first access to the weekend sheets, because the guys and girls that are lucky enough to not worry about working anymore are using up their future allocation on the midweek slots. We also recommend going with 7 days in advance because it opens up more tee slots. I have been working with some of the clubs and noticed that quite a few of the clubs have been using 2 or 3 or 4 days in advance booking to try and allow members to be able to book. I believe 7 days works better because if we was to look at a standard tee sheet, what the majority of clubs will be using right now, we can see that I've got tee open from 7 AM through to 8 PM. That's 79 different time slots, thus giving me 158 players. So let's call it a nice round 160 players. If I only open the tee sheet up for 3 days, then I'm only opening 480 spaces. So if you have, for example, 500 members, you're not actually opening up enough spaces for all of your members to be able to book a single tee time. So by opening up 7 days in advance, you're actually going to open up 1,120 spaces, therefore giving the majority of your members the chance to book at least 1 or possibly 2 tee times depending on how many members you've got. And by going by 7 to 7 days, you're giving your weekend golfers the opportunity to book the weekend plenty of time ahead of the midweek golfers who are able to book midweek slots pretty consistently because they have a 5-day window to be able to book tee times instead of the weekend golfers who only have a 2-day window to be able to get a game of golf in. So I'm just going to go through the settings with you in the teas and bookings area. So general settings, allow bookings to be able to join existing bookings, self-explanatory. So if I book a single tea time, it means another member can come along and book in the same time as me with that turned on. If it's turned off, then if I book my single slot, it means that I have that slot all to myself and nobody else is allowed to join me. Allow the checking in of golfers. Turning this on will allow the starter or the pro to check in the golfers that have arrived and record the fact that they've turned up and played golf. Default interval between tee times and default slots is self-explanatory, 10 minutes and 4 slots. Allow tee service to be booked is your buggies, hire clubs, etc. Assignment of green fees to visitors, obviously it just allows you to charge your visitors for a green fee. I've got that left on at the moment, but I'm not actually allowing visitors in my settings, so but that's on just in case I want to turn it on in the future, and it allows me to automatically allow that to work. My IG Guestbook app is turned off because I don't want anyone using a touchscreen. Allow member types in the admin interface is the color coding for the different member categories on the start sheet. Member booking is currently turned on. I am asking my members when they book a playing partner to add their name, and I'm allowing members to see the names of the other players on the start sheet at any given time. A setting that's caused a little bit of confusion is the time that tee times open for booking. So if I'm using 7 days in advance, what that means is at 10 AM on the 7th day in advance, so 10 AM on the 3rd of June, I will be able to book a tee time at any time on the 3rd of June. So for example, if I want to book a tee time for the 4th of June, then I will need to wait until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to be able to book a tee time. I will be able to book a tee time at any time during that day, but I will not be able to book it until 10 AM. Allow members to book tee times on a touchscreen I've turned off because again we don't want people using a touchscreen. And time before second booking can be made has also caused a little bit of confusion, so just to quickly explain what that one is that if I am booking 8 AM on Saturday for example, it means I would not be able to put another booking on Saturday until 720 minutes after my first booking. Traditionally golf clubs normally have this on 4 or 4.5 hours, because if a member is on the golf course for 4 hours for example, it means that they are unable to rebook another time until 12:30, because obviously they can't play on the golf course twice at the same time. But as I am restricting players to 1 round per day, I've set that to 720 minutes to ensure that members are not booking more than once per day. Disable member guests, I've got that turned on because I'm not allowing guests on my golf course at the moment, and enable code of conduct, I've got that turned on because I want my members to accept the code of conduct when they make a booking. I'm going to show you how the booking system would look to a member and how the restriction rules would show to them. So you can see that I have 4 members here in 4 different windows, player A, B, C and D. I'm just going to go to the home page for each of them players so we can see how many bookings they've got on the system. So we can see that currently nobody has a booking or a tee time in the future. So as player A, I'm going to book a tee time, and here's the code of conduct. I have to press this green button to accept it. If I do not press the green button, I cannot get to the start sheet and I'm unable to book a tee time. So I'm going to press it, and I'm going to make a booking for tomorrow. So it is a future booking. We can see that my availability is there. I'm going to book a tee time for player A and player B. So I'm going to select 2 players. I have to enter my playing partner's details. And I'm able to select player B from the list, add them to the tee time as you can see, and then finish my booking. If if I now go down to my booking area, you can see that I have a booking for 2 players on Thursday 28th. As player B, if I refresh my homepage, you can see that player B also has a booking on Thursday 28th for 2 players because player A booked it in. I'm going to do a similar thing for player C, but I'm going to book it as a single player booking so you can see the slight differences. So I'm going to just follow player A and B, but I'm going to make a single player booking at 8:10 and I'm going to finish the booking. You'll see that I have a booking, but the difference being it's a single player booking instead of a 2-player booking. So player D is going to book a tea time as well, and player D is going to play with player C. Tomorrow. And we can see that there is a select button next to player C, so player D is going to join them, book his single slot, and finish. Now, when we look at the tea times for each player, we can see that everyone has 1 booking on the system. A and B is part of a 2-player booking, C and D are part of 2 individual 1-player bookings, although they're at the same time. Now, bearing in mind that I have a maximum of 2 future bookings, I'm going to book a second tea time for player A. I'm going to book it on Friday. I'm just going to book a single. I can see my 2 bookings on the system. I'm going to book a single for player B for Friday. You see our 2 bookings on the system, and likewise I'm going to do the same for player C. So we can see that all 3 players have 2 bookings on the system. Player D still has 1 booking, as he hasn't made his second booking yet. So we know that we have 2 bookings as a maximum. So as player A, I'm just going to confirm that's working properly. So I'm going to attempt to book a tea time. Now, if I go to today, I can see that I am able to book a tea time because today does not count towards the future rules. However, if I attempt to book a day in the future, we can see that I get the pop-up that tells me that the club has imposed the rule of 2 future bookings and that I've reached my limit, therefore I'm unable to book an extra tea time. We can see that working because I'm unable to actually hit any select buttons because there are no buttons available for me to press. And that will be the same for players B and C. So, can player D book an extra tea time? Yes, they can, because they've only made 1 booking. So I'm going to book Saturday for player D. And I think I'll play with player A. So I'm going to make a booking for 2 players. Enter details, another member, player A, submit. Now you'll notice player A has not come up because player A has already reached their future limit. Same thing will go for player C and also player B, as they've reached their future limit. So I can just add in another player. I'm just going to add in the support, and you can see that I am able to add a player who has not reached their number of bookings. I can finish that. If I go to make another booking, again we can see that I'm able to book today because it's day 0. But if I was to go to Sunday, for example, I've reached my limit. So you can see that a player is not able to overbook themselves, and another player is not able to overbook them on their behalf because it recognizes the fact that the player has overbooked. Now, there's been some confusion that players are getting more bookings on the system than they should be allowed. So that is probably because an admin has booked them on. Admins can always override the rules, and I will demonstrate that by bringing the admin page back in. And if I go to the admin page and select Sunday, I can add player A, and I'm going to add player B, and I can see that I've added them successfully onto the sheet. Now if I go back to player A and refresh, and player B and refresh, we can see that player A and player B both have 3 bookings on the system because admins are always able to override the rules. We've left it that way because you may have key workers who are restricted on where they can book, or you may have volunteers, for example, who've been doing marshalling and stuff like that, so you'll be able to put extra bookings on the system for them. But if you have players with extra bookings on the system, then just check that they haven't been booked by an admin, as admins can always override the booking rules. You may ask, does an admin booking count towards the player's maximum? So yes, it does, and I will demonstrate that by showing you the rules from the admin point of view. So I'm just going to come back in, and I'm just going to cancel some bookings so they haven't got future bookings on the system. Saturday, any on there? So let's just remove that booking. And Friday. So you can see I've removed all the second bookings for each player. If I refresh each player's page, oops, you should see that each player has 1 booking each on the system. So if I come back in with my admin portal, and on Friday I add a booking for each player, so now we can see when I refresh, oops, each player should have 2 bookings on the system. But if each player tries to book another booking in the future, so today is free, they can book, but let's say for example they want to book Saturday, even though the admin added them to the T-sheet, they are unable to self-book more than 2 bookings on the system. So always remember that if an admin books a player onto the system, it still counts towards their allocation, but an admin, can always add additional bookings onto the system over and above the restricted allowance. So if you have members that have more bookings on the system than you should have, then it may be worth checking whether an admin added that booking to the system or not. Because as you can see from my demonstration, even if an admin has put the booking on the system, that does count towards the player's future allocation. Okay, hopefully that helps you understand how the booking rules have been designed to work.